This week, I had a patient come in with issues related to her depth perception, and so I thought that it'd be fitting that that's what we talk about today. First off, what exactly is depth perception? Depth perception is the ability to identify the three-dimensional spatial layout of objects and surfaces in our surroundings. Now let's expand on that just a little bit more. One's ability to detect depth can be grouped into two general categories. The first being monocular cues, as in cues available from the input of just one eye, and then we have binocular cues, or cues that require input from both eyes. Binocular cues include binocular disparity and something called vergence, whereas monocular cues consist of static information, including things like the relative size of the object that you're looking at, perspective, interposition, lighting, focus cues like how much blur is on that image, as well as dynamic information whenever things are moving, such as motion parallax. And we may talk about all those monocular cues in a separate video, but in order to keep this video shorter, and just to speak on what is the most common of the two to become impaired, at least for the patients that I see, we'll break down how binocular vision is crucial for one's interpretation of depth. And also in this article, they state that our perception of depth is substantially enhanced by the fact that we do have binocular vision, and that this provides us with more precise and accurate estimates of depth and an improved qualitative appreciation of the three-dimensional shapes and position of objects. So with that being said, I think it would be fair to say that without binocular vision, our depth perception would probably be adequate, but not nearly as robust as with binocular vision. Let's start with something called binocular disparity. Binocular disparity is one of the most reliable cues that we have to perceive depth. It refers to the difference in image location of an object seen by the left and the right eye, resulting from the eye's horizontal separation. What exactly does that mean? Vision is a pretty wild thing whenever you really get down to the nitty-gritty of it. For example, how is it that we only perceive our world or our visual environment as one single image, but we have two separate eyes that are taking in two different images? If you've seen me before, you probably heard me use the example of both of our eyes operating like two cameras. And if both of those cameras are pointed at the same thing, that means that we should have two images that look fairly similar. So now those two separate images are fed back to the brain where they're blended together. So how does that relate to binocular disparity? Well, if both of my eyes are pointed at something that is, a fair distance away from me, the percentage of how similar those two images will be should be fairly high. If something is far away from me, both of my eyes can hit the center point of that object, whatever it may be, but as things start to move closer and closer, my eyes can no longer take in the exact same image. Let's use my thumb as an example. As my thumb makes its way closer and closer to my eyes will obviously start to converge in order so that I can still maintain fixation on my thumb. But as it continues to get closer and closer, now my left eye will be taking in more of the left side of my thumb, as well as the background behind the right side of my thumb. And my right eye will take in more of the right side of my thumb and the background behind the left side of my thumb. So now we have created this disparity between the two images of my right and my left eye. And my brain knows that the greater disparity in these two images, the closer that object has to be, whereas more similar, if those images are more similar, that image must be further away from me. Now let's wrap this all up by saying that this is a fairly common type of thing to happen after one sustains a head injury, because oftentimes the eye movement centers that are located within the brainstem can get disrupted, leading to abnormalities in how your eyes move about. Something that is really common that I see quite often is called convergence insufficiency, meaning that your eyes have an inability to stay on a single target as it progresses closer to you. Sometimes you'll see where one eye can't come in at all. Sometimes both eyes can't come in. Or sometimes both of them will come in, but either one or both can't hold that position. So you'll see the eyes come in, but the longer you hold it there, eventually one eye will start to drift outward. So it basically comes down to how can we do a thorough workup on each patient in order to isolate which eye is at fault, which muscles is at fault, and then perform targeted exercises to make that eye stronger. That is one possible way that we could look at this whole situation, but sometimes there are individuals who can develop slight deviations to the positioning of one of their eyes, even in the resting position. So, not in the convergence position, but in the resting position. So, in that instance, we need to have ways to objectively measure that both eyes are pointing at the same thing. And hopefully, this video just goes to show that even when it comes to something as unique as depth perception, there are numerous mechanisms that could lead to the impairment, and we haven't even touched on the monocular cues yet. So, if that sounds like something that you're struggling with, you can click the link down below to schedule your complimentary phone consult with me, and we can hopefully start to unravel this web and get you back to the life that you once had.